During a House of Commons Westminster Hall debate on the steel industry, Reform UK MP Lee Anderson expresses his frustration at the government's industrial strategy, warning them, "Come the next election, people will boot you all out." We will watch this clip, react, and also go over all of the latest British political news from the last 24 hours. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all things Westminster. So, as stated in the intro, during a House of Commons Westminster Hall debate on the steel industry, Reform UK MP Lee Anderson expresses his frustration at the government's industrial strategy, warning them, "Come the next election, people will boot you all out." Have a watch.
I think China's right. We should be actually copying China with this so-called steel strategy. They seem to have got it right. Now, I agree with the honourable members for Boston Skegness, his 5-point plan, but I feel that it will probably fall on deaf ears. The madness will continue. Steelworks will continue to close down. We'll continue to lose jobs. We'll continue to destroy communities in our great country, and we'll continue. Do you want to intervene? And again, like I say, I'm going to wind up now because I'm quite angry with the madness of this place that we work in. When there's families out there, there's communities that are relying on us to save their jobs. And they all sit there, Madam Chair, with glazed expressions on their faces. And I tell you what, come the next election, people in these communities will boot you all out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah. What do you make of this? Let me know in the comments. In other news, experts are calling on the government to introduce major car tax changes in the upcoming autumn statement to help recover public funding and address the future of motoring. Ahead of the upcoming budget on October 30th, the Campaign for Better Transport has suggested a number of key measures that could help the government claw back finances to ease the burden of the £22 billion black hole. It calls on Chancellor Rachel Reeves to introduce a pay-per-mile car tax on electric vehicles in lieu of fuel duty. This comes ahead of new car tax changes launching in April 2025, which will see zero-emission cars pay vehicle excise duty, VED, for the first time in a bid to make motoring taxation fairer. The Campaign for Better Transport acknowledged this, but notes that there is currently no equivalent to fuel duty for owners of zero-emission vehicles, causing a further headache for the government. This will be especially pertinent in the coming years, as Labour plans to reinstate the original 2030 deadline to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel vehicles, which will also coincide with a boom in electric car sales. As a result of this, the CBT has told the Treasury to introduce a simple pay-per-mile tax on zero-emission vehicles, while allowing a sufficient transition period for drivers and businesses to prepare. Data from the advocacy group states that a 2 pence per kilometre charge, which would be based on distance only, could raise £815 million in the first year, while revenue will grow as more drivers switch to EVs. A pre-budget report from the organisation states, introducing distance-based taxation for ZEVs would ensure that the transition to cleaner vehicles does not undermine public finances. The Labour manifesto pledged to support electric vehicles with more charging points, the restoration of the 2030 deadline to ban new petrol and diesel cars, as well as supporting the purchase of used EVs. Speaking previously in an interview, an HM Treasury spokesperson clarified, "We have no plans to introduce road pricing. We are committed to supporting our automotive sector as we transition to electric vehicles in order to meet our legally binding climate targets." It also calls on the government to end the 5 pence per litre cut on fuel duty and instead reinstate the annual inflation-linked rise. All planned increases to fuel duty in line with inflation have been cancelled since 2011, while Rishi Sunak introduced the 5 pence per litre cut in 2022 when he was Chancellor. The CBT has estimated that the 13-year freeze has cost the Treasury £133 billion between 2011-12 and 2024-25, with a further £7.3 billion from the 5 pence cut. While the fuel duty cut will naturally expire in March next year, experts have called on the government to ditch the 5 pence freeze commitment, since many motorists have not benefited from the scheme as major retailers and supermarkets fail to pass on savings to drivers. The report states that the Treasury should end the 5p cut to recoup £2.6 billion a year and reinstate the annual inflation-linked rise in fuel duty to raise £1.6 billion per year. An HM Treasury spokesperson has previously said, following the spending audit, the Chancellor has been clear that difficult decisions lie ahead on spending, welfare and tax to fix the foundations of our economy and address the £22 billion hole in the public finances left by the last government. Decisions on how to do that will be taken at the budget in the round. Lastly, Labour ministers are exploring plans to potentially transfer ownership of the Post Office to thousands of sub-postmasters across Britain. The Department for Business and Trade has engaged management consultancy BCG to examine options for mutualising the 364-year-old institution. This could include an employee-owned mutual model, similar to that used by the John Lewis Partnership. The exploration of new ownership models is seen as part of efforts to repair the Post Office's battered finances and reputation following public anger over the Horizon IT scandal, which saw hundreds of sub-postmasters wrongfully convicted of theft. However, the process is still in its early stages, with no decisions yet made. A report from BCG is expected to be delivered to Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds in the coming months, according to Sky News. Branded as Britain's biggest miscarriage of justice, the Horizon IT scandal was brought to wider public attention by the ITV drama Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. Many affected sub-postmasters suffered ill health, marital breakdowns, or died before being exonerated. In response to the crisis, Sir Alan Bates, a key figure in exposing the scandal, suggested the government should consider suing former Post Office directors. Sir Alan, knighted in June, is still negotiating his compensation settlement with the government. The scandal has also prompted calls for a review of the Post Office's ownership model. Andy Fury, a national officer at the CWU Union, stated, "There has to be a totally new operating model for the Post Office going forward to remain relevant for society." BCG's work on mutualising the Post Office is expected to include assessing the viability of an employee-owned model. A government insider noted that the report is likely to be handed to Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds in the coming months. Both Reynolds and Gareth Thomas, the minister overseeing the Post Office, are scheduled to give evidence to the public inquiry into the Horizon IT crisis next month. They may be questioned about the BCG project during their appearances. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comments section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.